We have Dr. Laurie Marker joining us. She is a research scientist and conservation biologist, recognized as one of the world's leading experts on cheetahs. So as the founder and executive director of Cheetah Conservation Fund, Dr. Marker has pioneered research, established conservation models, and created cooperative alliances on behalf of the cheetah that never existed before. So I'm going to bring her in live with us right now. Here we go. Hey, Laurie, how you doing?
Great. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. It is great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. We just got started half an hour ago. We're going to broadcast live for over 20 hours straight. It is so great to have you here and sharing your story with us, which is really a story of hope, and it's an exciting story.
Very good. Well, I'm going to try to get my slides up here, and I can share with you what we're going to do. So
excellent.
Wish me luck on that.
All right. Well, that's why I'm here, for support if it's needed. But we had a great test and things looked good. And I am excited that we get to share this story here today. And I do want to remind everybody who's tuning in. Oh, it looked like we have, some early morning folks joining us out in Whistler, British Columbia in Canada. So I thought I was up late, but yeah, excellent. And I see your presentation, Laurie, and you are ready. So I'm going to let you take over.
Well, great. Well, again, very great to see you, Joe, and to be on this presentation. Obviously, we're talking about biodiversity, and saving cheetahs means saving biodiversity. And I'll try to tell you a little bit about my story. First, I want people to know about cheetahs. They are they're Africa's most endangered big cat. Less than 7,000 cheetahs left in the world today. And we've watched them go extinct in the last 100 years. And they're gone in about 20 countries right now, still found in about 23. The threats are people caused primarily: loss of habitat, illegal wildlife trade, human wildlife conflict. And also the cheetah is a very unique species because it lacks genetic diversity. And so today we're finding fragmented populations in very low numbers. And they're in a vortex towards extinction, and we need to do something. And that's what we are doing from the Cheetah Conservation Fund. I'm a map person. I'm a scientist. I like everyone to know what I'm talking about. The light yellow is where cheetahs once lived. The dark yellow is where they are living today in fragmented populations, 31 of them. Most of them are found outside of protected areas. And so I think it's more easy for people to think about saving an animal if it's in a protected area. But here we're working with humans and human wildlife conflict. And most of the cheetahs are found in southern Africa. I'm usually based in Namibia, which is in the southwest part of Africa, where I've been based for about 33 years. Well, that's me, and I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit. I do have a PhD from Oxford. I've been working on cheetahs since 1972, and I'm also a Explorers Club member, and as is Joe, and so also want to share a little bit more about what exploration of saving a species is all about. So who am I and where did I come from, and why do I care about cheetahs? I grew up on the back of a horse. I still ride every day I can. I love dogs. I had a dairy goat farm. I was a dairy goat judge. And then I started working at a wildlife park in Oregon called the Wildlife Safari in the early 1970s. And that cheetah that's running through the middle right there is the reason why we're trying to save cheetahs today. I raised her as a young cub, and in the middle 1970s, I took her to Namibia, Africa, to find out if a captive-born cheetah could learn how to hunt. But what I found was that farmers were killing cheetahs like flies, hundreds of them. And I wanted to know why. And I wanted to find out if we couldn't stop the killing. And what were they? Were they all eating their livestock, or was it a perceived threat? And like people around the world think, predators should be killed. That's not my philosophy. So I founded the Cheetah Conservation Fund. In 1990, I moved to Namibia. I kept thinking somebody was going to save the cheetah, and nobody did. And I have developed a world-class research center in the middle of Africa. And from this is where our conservation programs are all based out of. Our programs are really about saving the cheetah, and our strategic programs, from land conservation, research and genetics, ecology, education, habitat restoration, human wildlife conflict, these are all parts of what we're doing, and capacity building. and economic development to try to look at saving the cheetah on the land. We've unfortunately had to have sanctuaries. We've raised and had to care for hundreds of animals that have come in where their parents have been killed. In Namibia, we've developed very large areas. They exercise. Many of these animals are able to go back out into the wild. But most of the animals that we work with are animals that have been caught in capture cages like these on I guess my right, your left, or my left, your right, where these cheetahs are caught because farmers have perceived them as a threat to their livestock. We have worked with the farming community for 30 years where we put collars on them and we put them back out into the wild. And these animals we're able to track, and we've, over the years, in 30 years, have developed the baseline work on how cheetahs live in the wild. So our research is very important, and we've got an amazing ecological group staff, and we work and monitor cheetahs, other predators, the wildlife, the vegetation, the soils, the climates, and all of this is to really look at how we can save the cheetah, how the interactions are between the wildlife and the people, and how we can actually facilitate a coexistence for man and nature. And then all of the work that we do informs our conservation and restoration and rewilding, because we really want to reestablish cheetahs in those 20 countries where cheetahs once lived. We have a genetics lab in the middle of Namibia, Africa. We use scat dogs to find scat, and the scat we can collect DNA from. We can look at populations, diet, hormone, diseases. So we are doing a lot of different research aspects on also looking at how to save the cheetah. And then we have conservation. We use dogs to save cheetahs. These are Kangals and Anatolian Shepherds. Just this overnight, we've just had a litter of 9 puppies born. We've had over 750 of these dogs born. We place them with the farming community when they're about 10 weeks of age. They grow up with the livestock, goats and sheep, and they protect the livestock from predators. And we see between an 80 to 100% reduction of livestock loss by having these dogs. They are absolutely amazing. But we think education is the key. Education is critical. We work with 750,000 of Namibian school children. We work with a program called Future Farmers of Africa and teach them how, in an integrated system, we can live in harmony with nature, taking care of our wildlife as well as our livestock. We also do a One Health program, and we work with them to help keep their livestock as well as their domestic animals healthy. And if anybody's listening and you want to be an intern, we also have great interns. Over 300 Namibian interns, which are now working throughout the Ministry of Environment, and have had over 5,000 international students and interns and volunteers, and PhD students and master's students. So come on down to Namibia, or maybe come to Somaliland and help us as well. I'm in Somaliland right now because we've had to develop a new base because of the problems facing the illegal wildlife trade for cheetahs. The square box up there is the Horn of Africa. And from the Horn of Africa, cheetah cubs are being stolen from the wild. And they're sold into the Middle East as pets for thousands of dollars. For every one cheetah that might make it, about 4 or 5 of them die. And so in the last 5 years, we've been developing programs working with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. Unfortunately, many of these cheetahs have been confiscated, well, fortunately, and are not dead. Today, we have over 90 cheetahs at our sanctuary in Somaliland, as well as a leopard and a caracal, which were also caught for the trade, thinking that they were cheetahs. Cheetahs do and have been kept by the as a status symbol because they're very, very tameable. And unfortunately, when they do get them, if 1 out of 4 make it into the pet trade, they usually only have a lifespan of a year or 2. So we're now in Somaliland developing Gedebli, which is going to be the first national park. The map shows you the green area, which is about 50,000 hectares, 120,000 acres. We're developing that as our first national park. And with that, today we have our 90 cheetahs that we've just moved into our Cheetah Rescue and Conservation Center from safe houses in the middle of Gedebli. Here we've got large enclosures, veterinary clinics, staff housing, And we're hoping eventually these cats that have been rescued from the pet trade could eventually go back out into the wild. It's a lot of work to try to save a species, is all I can say. We put camera traps up to learn more about the biodiversity on the lands, especially in this new national park, because Somaliland's never had any wildlife programs or national parks. Our surveys actually have taken us throughout the country, and this is not Somalia, this is Somaliland, a breakaway country from Somalia, which isn't even recognized by anyone in the world as a country. However, it is a very peaceful and democratic country. The area where we're showing the Adal area is an area where we are currently going to be developing a conservancy area. And these are areas where we've actually reported cheetah sightings, and we are learning where the cheetahs are living, and the camera traps will also help us. Now, this is exciting because cheetahs have never been mapped or recorded up in this part of the world. We're seeing other amazing species that are not seen and known about in these areas. Some of the most endangered species there are, antelope. We've got birds. It's just amazing, tortoises and reptiles. And then I'm working very closely with the women who are the ones who are caring for the livestock. Somaliland is the third poorest country in the world. And so we're also looking at livelihood development and bringing our Future Farmer of Africa program into this area to teach them how to have better, healthy animals, less of them, looking at rangeland and helping them learn how to help take care of the wildlife around them as well. So cheetahs help maintain the health of grassland ecosystems. They're a grassland area. Many areas throughout where the cheetahs are living are some of the driest and poorest places on Earth. And yet these areas, these dry lands, are very affected by climate change. We look at the cheetah as being the dry land panda because the dry land polar bear, because everybody talks about the polar bear when we're looking at the climate change aspects. But these grasslands are extremely important, and the arid lands where the cheetahs are found are critical. I want to talk about our reintroduction program to India, which has just occurred. And this is probably one of the most exciting programs that has ever happened, taking a large carnivore over into a continent where the cheetah became extinct about 75 years ago. We started this road to recovery around 15 years ago at a very important consultative meeting. Then in 2022, the government of India felt it was ready, and we started having delegations of Indians to Namibia to start learning how to take care of cheetahs, understanding how cheetahs live. Cheetahs aren't tigers, and they're not lions, and they're not leopards. And so we did a lot of training and work with the Indian delegations from the wildlife and forestry departments. Then we helped them develop a reserve, which is called Kuno National Park, which is huge, in the middle of Madhya Pradesh. And here shows you the entrance to this reserve. And all of the communities around have been sensitized into what's going on with the cheetahs and are very excited that cheetahs are coming onto the park. The day then came when we were starting to look at moving these animals over. All of these animals had health checks. They were fitted with satellite collars, trying to follow the health of these animals. All of our animals are banked. We have sperm banks, blood banks. So we have genetic banking of these animals. Then we crated the animals up and got them ready to go into India. Again, we took an explorer's flag with us because this was the first ever reintroduction of a large carnivore to another continent. Again, after 75 years, we had a wonderful plane of a tiger that actually flew us 10 times back to India. This was a gift from Namibia to India. It was my job to present the cheetahs, 8 of them, to the Prime Minister of India on his birthday. It was a very big honor, and it was a very important diplomatic statement as well. We helped India rewrite history with the arrival of the cheetahs. 8 of our cheetahs from Namibia are there. This happened on the 17th of September, and we're very excited. But a second group of cheetah then arrived in February of 2023. And here again we are at Kuno. I didn't fly in the plane with the cats this time. This time they came from South Africa, but we were there to greet them and again work with them being settled in to their new environment. There's a huge project team working on this. These are all the people that we've worked with and trained to actually be on the ground to help take care of these cheetahs. It's one of the breaking news throughout the world, and every day India is putting a new story out about what's going on with the cheetahs. Many of them are now out in the wild after going through their quarantine periods, and they are hunting. I always say they really like Indian food. People had wondered whether the antelope would be different or deer than what they were used to from the antelope in Namibia. And indeed, they're hunting very well. And we're very excited because just about 2 months ago, we had the first litter of cubs born. And these cubs now are about 8 weeks of age, and they're starting to follow the mother around. And it's extremely, extremely exciting to watch our cheetahs back on Earth in India. So it takes a village to save a species. And I hope all of you who are listening are learning about biodiversity and the importance of it, and how important top predators are to biodiversity within these areas. And these dryland areas where the cheetahs are found are also very, very heavy in biodiversity, and we need to maintain those systems as well. So please join us to learn more. Join our website. Go to our website, cheetah.org, or our Facebook page, CCF Cheetah, and hashtag Save the Cheetah. And I want to thank you for listening to me, and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Laurie, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. It is so exciting that everything has come together this way. I can only imagine that leading up to this, you hoped it would go this smoothly, but we know things don't always go that same way. If you want, Laurie, to hit the stop screen share in the bottom, that'll bring you back front and center. There we go. So you can see me now. And yeah, I want to give a shout out to our audience. We have people saying hi here in Colombia, in British Columbia, so up here in Canada, in the Philippines. So I love this event because it really does bring people together from all over the world. We've got someone saying hi in Croatia right now. So thank you to everybody who's joining us live and will be joining us over the next 20 hours as we dive into biodiversity. So Laurie, let's get into some questions here. And first, I want to start with everything's coming together. You're standing on the plane. The cheetahs are being loaded. How are you feeling in that moment?
Amazing that we got on the plane. And I think the teamwork and the pre-planning, everything coming together, the cooperation of the cheetahs to go into their pens and their crates to be moved. We've got an amazing team. And again, we've been doing cheetah work for a very long time. So we are the professionals, and we know what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you talked about the Explorers Club and the importance of exploration. And anybody who's ever planned something or gone on an expedition knows that nothing ever goes entirely as planned. So can you take us behind the scenes, something that happened during this journey where things maybe didn't go as planned and you had to think on your feet or be flexible?
Well, I think flexibility is always what you have to do, and you have to continually think fast on your feet. And actually, I think most times explorers actually are thinking ahead of everything anyway, mostly in a plan. And so you'll try to think through what could happen. I think one of the things that happened with the India experience is we all got on the plane, and in Namibia, they said, "Did you pay for the gas for the plane, the app gas?" And they had to find the bank deposit to show that it had been paid for. It was like, come on, really? We've got to land. We have an appointment with the Prime Minister. So that was one of the things. But again, I think when we're working with animals, you have to know enough to be prepared for almost anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No question. So what I think is so amazing about all all of what's happened is how the country really seems to have embraced what has happened. You know, they've been out without cheetahs for 70 or so years. They're back. And, you know, how were you surprised by the reaction? Did you think it would be picked up on so quickly and embraced by really the whole country?
It was actually one of the more exciting things that I've ever seen, to see a country so in harmony together on it. Of course, there are naysayers, I must say, and there's always going to be. And the success of this program is not something that is just with, you know, 2 shiploads of cheetahs or airplane loads of cheetahs. It's going to take 10 to 20 years for this to be a success. But out of that, they were very well prepared. India, I think, is one of the most amazing countries because they actually embrace wildlife. They're very gentle. They don't kill animals indiscriminately. It's against the law. And so from that, they are, they've been very sensitized. Cheetahs are not like a tiger or a lion. They're not going to eat you. They're the smallest of the big cats. They will run away from you. And so those are the things that had been a lot of work done beforehand. That teams had been through a lot of our training in Namibia on how we work with our communities. And from that, those programs have been instigated in these areas. And so when I actually got there and went out and started meeting the villagers, everywhere you saw, there were signs of cheetahs, welcome cheetahs, you know, and it was welcome the cheetahs. And then from that also throughout in the entire country as we drove, it was, you know, welcome the cheetahs. And media was more than I could even believe. And the media, of course, was reporting everything that went on. And we were trying to continually help get the media correct, because also media can tell stories that aren't correct. And so, you know, again, trying to make sure that the storyline is right is also an important thing.
Yeah. So we've got a question here coming in via the chat. This is coming from Colombia. Andrea would like to know, are there people who are going to be monitoring the perceptions of people in the areas where the cheetahs are being reintroduced? So those who,
yes, it's ongoing. They're monitoring everything. So the cats are monitored 24 hours a day, and knowing where they are, as the people are also being monitored on a regular basis. Yes. So that is an ongoing part of this program. Again, we did a lot of work prior to this with the IUCN groups, reintroduction, cat specialist, as well as the veterinary, and looking at the human wildlife conflict side of it. So all of this has been very well laid out. And that's why I think a laid out program is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 trips so far. What's next? What's on the horizon? Will there be more cheetahs heading to India? Are there other places where this reintroduction model can be continued? What's the plan heading forward?
Well, yes, with it, there will be more, and both South Africa and Namibia have given and have said to India that they will continue, which was part of the plan, to have enough cats. That's why from South Africa they came, because you have to have enough animals. And this is a big research project that's going on. And you couldn't take animals from other areas because there really are not enough of them. The animals that we have here in Somaliland are very, very important. As I said, we have 90 of them at this point in time. And these are all confiscated from the illegal wildlife pet trade. They are a very important subspecies, and there's a very good possibility that they will also be utilized, we hope, in the future for being able to be put into potentially other rehabilitation areas or rewilding areas. So this is a reintroduction, and you have to actually, these animals would be rewilded. And actually, some of the animals that we took to India were second generation from animals that had been rehabilitated. And so those are also firsts that many people, how you go about a reintroduction or rehabilitation of an animal. If you have an orphan, that's a lot of what our research has been, because we want to put every animal we can into the wild. Yeah. And if it has come in as an orphan, we have now developed ways that we can put these animals back into the wild. They're not going to be the ones that are going to go into the wild, but they can go into a protected game reserve, like in South Africa and Namibia, they have many of them, and their offspring can be utilized for these rewilding programs. We are looking at areas in the Middle East that want to have cheetahs back out into the wild, and particularly Saudi Arabia has been very, very interested in trying to bring a lot of their wildlife back. In order to bring animals like a predator back, you have to have enough rangeland. You need to have enough prey base before a predator can actually survive. And so those are also part of the research points that have to be conducted in order to be able to bring animals back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned the Middle East. I think a lot of people don't know that there are still some cheetahs. We'll be connecting later in the day with Morteza from Iran, and he's going to share his story and the work that he's doing. So I'm really excited that we can do that as well. And so let's see here. I think we have one more question coming in here. Oh, curious about cheetahs in the Middle East that are currently pets of wealthy families. Is there still things going on to try and get them out of this situation and maybe back into the wild?
Well, those animals that are in those situations, we're trying to stop that supply and demand. And that's what we're doing in the Somaliland with these orphan cats that we have. They've all been confiscated from the illegal wildlife pet trade. And it is critical that we, through awareness, try to stop the people that have them as pets to have them as pets. The government is doing all they can by strict laws. There's a lot of awareness and education. But those animals that have been pets are probably not going to be good animals to put back out into the wild because they are pets. And it would be like taking any one of you and dropping you in the middle of the Sahara Desert and hoping that you are going to live, and you probably won't, especially if you live in a city. Sorry to say, I wouldn't either, and I live in the middle of the bush, so it doesn't matter. But what we want to do is to stop these animals coming out from the wild, and to try to keep every wild animal, cheetah, that's in the wild, living in the wild. And that's through awareness, education, research, and government pressure. But I think that we're trying to win together with the Middle East to try to get them to be a part of the solution, and because they are part of the problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, Laurie, today is all about really kind of three things. We're sharing the weird and the wonderful. We, of course, want to highlight the challenges biodiversity is facing and biodiversity loss around the world and what that means. But I'm so glad that we can also share stories of hope. And this really is a real story of hope. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing that story with us, and the incredible work that you are doing.
Thank you. And please, if anybody's interested, go to our website, cheetah.org, and learn more about what we're doing. Join us in keeping the cheetah living free and in the wild, and being a part of the biodiversity that it should be. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.